beer, rum, and rock and roll. Saving rock, one conversation at a time. With Randy Legault and Beau Shiminsky.
All right, welcome to another Beer, Rum, and Rock and Roll podcast. This is going to be a good one. It's been a while since we've talked to this dude, about a year and a half actually, and it's always a fucking treat. We had Todd Dammit Kerns back on the show, and it was a fucking blast.
Yeah, totally, man. He's such a great interview. Always is. Always a pleasure.
For those of you who have maybe been living under a fucking rock, he's the frontman of Age of Electric, Static and Stereo. He does Raiding the Rock Vault in Vegas. And of course, he's the bass player for Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. But the thing about this cat is he's always doing new shit. Yeah. So in this case, the project's called Minefield, and we're going to hear all about that. So it's two cats from Ace Frehley's band and this dude, Brandon Fields. I have no idea who this guy is, but he'll give us all the deets we need, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And we get an update on what's going on in the Slash camp, of course. Rumor has it they're doing a follow-up to Living the Dream. I'm sure we'll find out all about that. And we'll talk about Toque, of course, see what's going on there.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and how he's been dealing with, you know, the world that all musicians are in right now, which is kind of waiting and seeing when they get to be on a stage again, and how hard that was for him. So I'm looking forward to chatting a bit about that. So
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
All right, enough of us yakking it up. Buckle up, kids. It's time for Todd Dammit Kerns on the Beer, Rum, and Rock and Roll podcast. Roll it. And there he is.
There he is.
I like these sexy shirts, gentlemen. What the fuck?
You like that? We are representing. We don't fuck around. So here's the thing. There's two schools of thought on this. I've heard this before. You never wear the band's t-shirt at the show.
Right.
I always do. You think Steve Harris wants to see a Judas Priest t-shirt at the front? No fucking way does he want to see that.
I remember there's footage of I think it's Paul Stanley or somebody giving some guy at a Kiss concert a hard time for an Iron Maiden shirt. Like, it's a Kiss concert, bro.
That was an interview. And it was
that's
awkward.
what it was, yeah.
They made him change it.
And there was a lot of people who were like, can you believe the ego is on these guys? Like, oh, come on. It's pretty funny to me, actually.
It actually is. Yeah, totally, dude. How are you, man?
I'm great. I'm hoping. Can you hear me okay? Is this thing working?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I tried to up my game to getting a proper microphone, and I'm constantly sort of like, is this on? I like the Farrah Fawcett.
You like that?
It totally throws me back to, back in the day when you'd have there's always the Kiss.
Similar taste in guitars. Yeah.
Empire State Building Kiss. There'd often be a Bruce Lee or a Corvette poster, that kind of thing.
I don't have those two.
Yeah, but in the 70s, that would be the thing. Farrah Fawcett.
That's right.
Cheryl Ladd later on.
Yes.
I was a Heather Thomas guy.
There you go.
Teagues. Cheryl Teagues. That was the other one. Yeah.
Cheryl Teagues. Wow. What was she from?
She was from modeling, I believe.
Just hair, probably a hair products or something like that. Yeah.
I need a few more guitars though, by the looks of yours. Like, I've got your VH, I got the Iceman, and that's where it ends, man.
I see that. Yeah. I like what Beau's got going on. What's the story on that Flying V?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I was waiting all my life to get a V and never pulled the pin on it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden I got a few Gibson custom shops and, going through the website, and they launched this Black Beauty Flying V about 5 years ago. And there it was. That's done.
So has it got like the Les Paul custom kind of stuff going on? Like, is it got?
Yeah, here, I'll bring it over to you.
Yeah, please do.
Look at it. Yeah.
Because my next question is, can I have it?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, that one's sick, dude.
It's just so unreal, and it plays like a mofo too. But
the 57 kind of tailpiece on it with the Flying V bridge, like, that's the way to fly. Yeah.
Right? It's just so spacey.
Yeah, very. It looks real sort of macked out Cadillac kind of, they did a nice job of that.
Yeah, and I think it's because they did the Black Beauty kind of homage to it that I think they weren't going to spare any kind of cosmetic anything on it. But
is it triple binding around that thing?
Single.
Listen to you guys. This is awesome.
Super sexy though. Yeah. They did a like, they had all the Les Paul custom specs on an Explorer and on the Flying V, and they were both like sick guitars, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fun to play, and I tell this story every now and then is because it makes me play the guitar a lot differently because I don't really stand to practice or, you know, play at home.
Of course.
So I got way more, you know, I'm writing different things because it's so different, right? But anyways, when you're here next, we'll put it through the Bad Cat or the Friedman or something to see.
Hell yeah. And what's the story on that telly bass back there? That's really cool.
Well, that one is a, well, I'll bring that over too.
It's show and tell time.
Now, this is a kit kind of situation.
It's cool though.
But it is, and it's got, you know, these gun barrel pots that are kind of, I don't know if you could see those.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah.
We're kind of fun, and I like this old telly bridge or pick guard.
Yeah.
You know, and these lollipop tuners.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? It's just kind of its own little punk thing that I like.
Adam Clayton, you know, the U2 guy's signature P bass has those tuning pegs. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Who made that?
I can't remember who got the body for me, but it's plank, eh?
Oh,
it's
okay.
like there's no belly relief at all.
No,
it's just it's a punk bass. And
yeah, 100%.
Slung low and
there you go.
Piece of wood you can knock somebody off the stage with.
That's the way it's meant to be done. Exactly. Yeah, you got. Right. I got all that's a Bo Diddley.
Yep.
Rectangle there.
Look at that.
Like made after like a cigar box. This is a Gene Simmons Axe bass.
Yeah.
Awesome.
As you can kind of see.
Knowing you, it's probably signed by Gene. Yes.
No, not signed, but I one of these days I'll have to hassle him for that.
Absolutely.
It's coming.
It's coming.
I got a couple things off the top. The wig looks fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it's my day wig. I also got my new Rush shirt, so
oh, nice.
Made to look old, but I kind of had, you know, talking to my Canadian brethren, I should probably bust out some Canadian.
That's
stuff.
right. That's right. You know, I was thinking, you know, being follically challenged like I am, maybe I should go full Moira and wear a different wig on every fucking show.
Dude, you know what's so funny is a long time ago, this tells you how long ago it was. It was the they had a record release party at the Key Club in Los Angeles in Hollywood. So the old Gazzari's spot, and it was Maynard from Tool's A Perfect Circle. It was A Perfect Circle was playing there, kind of like, yeah, it was like a record release thing, and I hadn't heard the music or anything like that, but I remember I went to the show. And it was Maynard from Tool, who was a bald guy. And he walks out on stage and he looked like Geddy Lee, you know, like early 70s Geddy Lee. And I was like, which one is Maynard? I'm like looking around. He's usually the singer in this. And I go, he just like completely altered his look. He was wearing like a suit and sandals and this crazy long wig. And I was like, there you go. He didn't care. He's like, this is my Perfect Circle wig. Boom, go to work. I was like, or else he'd like really got some work done to grow that kind of hair in, you know, a year or something like that. But yeah,
you'd be in a baseball cap a long time to get those kind of plugs going.
Well, then the next time I saw him with Tool, he was bald. So I assume, yeah, I assume that's just for theatrical purposes, I guess. I don't know.
They're not about the theater at all, that band.
Yeah.
Does he do the full body paint? He's whacked in a great way.
He's super crazy, yeah. I've played a bunch of festival things with him, and it's always interesting. People often complain because he's like, he's got his back to the crowd, to the whole show. He'll be up on a riser way in the back with his back to the audience, and it's like a giant screens and stuff. It's just a whole, it's theater. It's not, but not like, you know, sort of like theater, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the weather like three old dudes and get that out of the way.
Well, I was just thinking about this because, you know, there's been so much talk today about Las Vegas losing to the Canadians last night.
Right.
And I got to be honest, it was like, you know, because a lot of my friends who are well, that's the thing about Vegas is it's like there was no hockey. And then the next day it was like that logo is everywhere, like on every car, every t-shirt. And it's really exciting for a guy who you know, when I moved to the States, you really have to seek out hockey. It's not everywhere like it is at home when you go to Boston Pizza and the game is on or whatever, you know, it's like, you really have to kind of seek it out. You have to get the nice package to watch it on your television, that whole thing. You have to kind of actually make a plan. So you know, but but the Vegas folks are so, you know, unaware of the fact that this is a complete anomaly, that you get a team and it goes to the playoffs every single year. You know, it's like, or at
No
least
big deal.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. I go, absolutely not. And when those slump years come, and they're going to come at some point, no matter what, there's going to be like a couple of years where things are like, what the hell happened to these guys? You know, I think they just kind of think that you get a hockey team and they're killer and then they perform. It's like, that's not the way this works, especially when you're considering these guys are like, I just can't imagine what it's like to be a kid from, you know, Airdrie, Alberta, and like go down and play in Vegas when it's 115 outside, and you got to go down to the hockey arena and play hockey. It doesn't make any sense.
It's
so
weird, right?
I thought it would really have an effect on the Montreal guys, and I think that there's something to be said about the fact that Montreal was playing to, well, nobody, and then like 3,500 people,
Right.
and then they come to Vegas, and Vegas is jam packed. It's a complete Vegas show. You know, it's like pyro and all kinds of crap going on.
Flaming arrows and shit. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
It's next level. And that's the other thing that makes me laugh too, is I can't wait for somebody like that to go to like Detroit and watch a game and it just be like this, you know, red Solo Cup, like regular dudes.
Right.
It's just like old time original six hockey team, you know. It's not like this Vegas thing everywhere, you know.
No, is everything open up, Todd? Like, what's the
Everything's
story with
open,
shows?
dude. It's like, it's the weirdest thing. It's like, I don't think anybody cares. I don't think there's any sort of like, you know, like, well, it could be, you know, numbers could go up. I don't think at this point, nothing's going backwards. It's 100 degrees here. I just wanted to look that up for you.
What's 30 again? What's 30 Celsius?
Real feel 103, which is nuts. Cause I was just out there and it's like, this is 103. It feels pretty nuts. Yeah.
Right. Like, what about like the Coliseum and, you know, these music venues? Are they all open? Like, is fucking Cher doing whoever's in there?
I think, well, those places are sort of, everything's a little bit sort of delayed because, you know, like that's what's so fascinating about watching these dates. I've been saying it all along. It's sort of like, you know, it's like everything's closed. And then all of a sudden it's kind of, okay, we're going to take little baby steps. And then the next day it's like, everything's like, you know, a million, you know, everything's millions of dates being announced. And I'm like, what happened to the baby steps here? It's like, so clearly people were working on dates that were, they were taking a chance on them being postponed again. I mean, a lot of the bigger stuff has been postponed until 2022, but that said, Vegas is wide open. So, I mean, I don't know. I know Shania's coming back here, but not toward, like more towards end of the year, October, November or something like that. And that kind of thing. So in the meantime, I literally went to see Brent Fitz, his sister, was playing keyboards in a Journey tribute band. It was an all-female Journey tribute band, and I was like, well, that'll be fun. I haven't been out in a long time, and you know, who doesn't like Journey? You know, I was like,
sure.
So we go, and the place is jamming, dude. It's like slamming in there, and it's a little bit kind of like you're coming across old friends going, hey, how are you? And you're kind of like, are we supposed to hug? Are we supposed to, you're kind of like, you know, it's a little weird, but yeah, it was really a good sign that, you know, they're an extraordinarily talented band, but I kind of half expected it to be sort of like, you know, pretty good, but not jamming like that. I think it was a good example of like these roaring 20s that are about to unfold.
Right.
Everybody's kind of like, I don't think it's ever going to be the same again. And I go, dude, it's just a matter of time. Everybody wants to get out. Everybody wants to have a good time. Everybody wants to forget this, you know what I mean? As much as they can, and just be able to go and, you know, go back to shows and go whatever. So, I mean, and things are going to be so crazy by 2022. It's going to be like, you know, on a Thursday night in Calgary, you're going to be like, well, which of these 5 bands should we go see tonight or whatever?
Totally.
You know, like, and
they're going to be
like,
competing for your dough big time, right? Like they're just announcing concerts after concerts. It's like, whoa.
You're not going to be able to get musicians off the stage. That's the deal, right? You're going to be like, no, I'm here. Tomorrow might be different. I'm fucking playing till the cops show up and say, kill the power. You know, that's what's going to happen.
Exactly. Cause it's like, I've been off stage for 15 months. So just like, I'm never leaving. Yeah. It's weird for me because I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of it all, because there's a part of me that just became more and more relaxed and more accustomed to,
sure.
You know, I used to think I was a real pirate, you know, but I think I've always been just a nerd pretending to be a pirate, because who else, who pretends to be a pirate? Nerds. That's But I think I literally kind of felt like, no, I'm going to do this till the day I die. And, then you kind of once in a while you stop and you go, when this happened, it was a real time of reflection to go, I think I want to pick and choose when I'm going and where I'm going and how long I'm gone for. I mean, we really all had to kind of plug ourselves back into being around home, around family. And I mean, the family part's really weird for us because we haven't been home in, going on 16 months. I haven't seen my family in a long time. So that's
glass
been
half
really
full. That
strange.
is the upside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Glass half full. It's pretty cool that way. As long as you can pay the bills and shit,
That's exactly it. Yeah. I say that now because it's like, it was kind of like this sort of retirement practice of like, oh, is this what this is going to be like? It's all right. Watch the whole season of whatever I'm watching, yeah, sure. I'll crank it up, and then putter around, do this, do that, make some, have some friends sending tracks over. Sure. I'll sing on that. Sure. I'll play on that. That's fun.
Right.
At some point it's going to be, my wife's going to be like, this is where we are today financially. This is where we'll be, within like 3 months. So get the hell out there and go to work. So I'm kind of like, we've done a lot of work and planted a lot of seeds that will take root, as we go along. But in the meantime, it's just been sort of like, I've learned how much of a weird home person I can be.
I'm like that too, dude.
Yeah. It's good to remind yourself once in a while that you can socialize like a regular person, but it's been very, I've really, in what was essentially a very negative experience in a grand scheme, ended up being pretty positive for me as far as just being able to kind of like unplug, figure out what's important, what's, what you've taken for granted and then hopefully make the best of it.
You've been gone so long,
Yeah.
I think that's not the normal for most people. Most people,
No.
it's 9 to 5, you're back with your family. But in your world, where you're touring, and then you got other things, in the studio, whatever, you're gone. Like, it's not like for an hour to go to the coffee shop. You know what I mean? It's Beth, right? Because me and the boys are playing. You know what I mean?
There it is. The Kiss reference.
I'm full on living Beth. You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So,
so
I mean,
funny.
I could see the importance of really kind of digging into it now for you, and how mentally that would be pretty positive,
Yeah, it's been interesting for me because, I've actually, I went to Orlando to work on a record. I went to Nashville to work on a record during all this. A lot of it was sort of very, cautionary in terms of doing it during all this stuff. But there's always that feeling of like, my first flight in 14, 15 months, this will be weird. And it's really, and it's immediately not weird. Like it's so funny how like, you're thinking about it, then you're going through the process of doing it, then you're on the plane and you're going like, this is as normal as could be, because my whole life is constantly like, checking in, getting on the, that whole thing and that whole process. But it's the same as going to the club. It's like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then you go to the club and you're standing amongst people going, this is the most normal thing in the entire world, because, it's abnormal compared to what we've been through, but it's like a return to normal, as certainly a normal what it's been like for me for the past 30, 40 years of my life. As I constantly on stage. Yeah. Well, 40 would be pushing it, I guess. 30 years now. Yeah.
See, and Randy and I got glasses on, and we look old like men. And you're sitting there just rocking it, long hair down to his ass, and no glasses. And,
I just can't see anything. That's all. Yeah. Yeah. If I have to read anything, out comes the glasses.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
They're at the ready. If it's okay with you guys, I want to circle back to Vegas and mourn the loss of the Hard Rock Casino.
Dude, it's funny that you mentioned it. I just drove past the Virgin Hotels yesterday. I was doing whatever I was doing, and I drove by and I went, I haven't gone in there yet. Like Eddie Trunk was just in town. I'm dropping names. Watch your feet. He was just in town, and he goes, we tried to get together, but we were both busy, and he's coming back. He's got a place. He just bought
a house, didn't he?
Yeah, he's got a place here now, but he was staying at the Virgin, and I go, oh man, I should come see it at least and take a walk through. I hear it's not radically different. It's just sort of, my wife's been in there and she said it was nice, but they were still kind of like, it was a sort of their soft opening where like a lot of the places were, and it was also during COVID. So it was kind of like some places were open, some places were not. So we haven't been back since, but I would love to take a walk through because I spent a lot of time in that building.
So have I.
Yeah.
I played gigs there, residencies, extended kind of gigs. And it was really surreal. So I had to make sure the last day it was open, my wife and I went over there and just took a walk through and did the thing, and
Yeah.
it was kind of, it's always weird, that stuff though, because it's kind of like, it's sort of dark in a weird way. But I've been here long enough to watch, like, I'll never forget when the Stardust was closing. They, which was an old school casino, but I'd been here off and on for years, and I'd never gone to the Stardust because it was never sort of a destination of, like, I never had a friend playing there or anything going on there. So I just never went. And then one day I was kind of like, well, they're shutting it down tomorrow and they're going to blow it up. So I pulled in, walked through it. It was a small casino, like one of the downtown ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that's that. And then like a month later,
right.
And the Riviera, like so many places, they just kind of like, this is a town of change, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the Flamingo will probably always remain because it was the first one. Someone will always try and retain that name. The rest of it is all up for discussion. It's like, It's all based on money, really.
Well, I mean, I love that. I just loved it there. That's where Andrea and I stayed every time we went, and we always based it on a concert. We were there at least once a year. First time I saw you there would have been at, well, we're fucking talking over a decade ago. Easy.
Is that in the Hard Rock?
Yep.
At Wasted Space?
You were, yep. Wasted Space
was owned by Carey Hart, who is a motocross guy.
Exactly. He was the Sinners at Wasted
Pink.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were like house band there every Thursday night for a long time.
I met Fitz there, and that's the first time I actually met him. And I just have these great memories. I saw Motley there a bunch of times, Black Crowes 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Kiss at the joint. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, and I loved how it was small in comparison. Didn't take you an hour to get to your room. Lucky's, Vinyl. I mean, I could go on and on. I'm super sad. I don't know where I'm going to stay.
It's an actually interesting conversation because it's sort of the same layout. So it's almost kind of surreal to imagine walking through and go, this used to be Mr. Lucky's, and that used to be Vinyl, and that used to be the joint. I don't even know what's going on with the joint. Like if they're planning on reopening it in some sort of the venue sense. I mean, it'd be a real shame to waste that venue. It's one of the best venues in the country.
It's pretty cool walking in there, even when it's empty. It's like, yeah, this is pretty cool space,
Totally.
And I've done that before too. It's pretty cool.
And it is intimate in terms of seeing, McCartney or Kiss or whatever. Like you're not in a hockey arena. You're in like a actually fairly moderate sized venue. You're not in like a hockey arena. So you're right. It does make it kind of more intimate.
If it wasn't Vegas, they wouldn't be doing that size. Let's face it. It's because it's there, right?
Totally.
Okay, I'm going to go totally Chris Farley right now. Do you remember when? I'm going to do that.
Remember that time? Yeah.
Remember that
time when you were in the
Beatles?
Exactly.
Because I have to tell this story because I will never forget it. You guys were playing Vince Neil's new rock club, Girls, Girls, Girls.
Oh, yeah. You came to that? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
So you don't remember when, but you might remember. I'm going to jar your memory, okay? You ready?
I'm sure you will, yeah.
So, Andrew, now what do you want to do tonight? I'm like, well, I know what I want to do. I want to go to a rock bar that has strippers in it, right? Oh, this is perfect marriage, right?
Yeah.
And she's up for anything, so off we go. Long story longer, table up front with these other friends of ours. I look over my right shoulder. Well, who's in the VIP section? Vince Neil.
Okay,
I'm a fucking Motley Crue freak. So
sure,
I'm vibrating, right? So I'm like, I wonder if Todd's going to call him up. Well, sure as shit, you do. He walks by me. I give him the lame ass fanboy high five on the way by. So lame, but I did it. He gets on stage and you guys are chatting about what song you're going to do or something. I could tell he was a couple pops in. Like he was, he was greased.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you guys
he's the right number of pops though, because Vince is one of those guys. As soon as you go past that certain point, it's like, okay.
He was right. I think right on the edge. Right?
Yeah. He was like one away probably.
Yeah. So here's the key though. So I think you guys do Highway to Hell or Girls, Girls, Girls or something, but the stage is shaped like a T, remember?
Yeah.
And it drops down a foot on each side, stripper pole, platform, 2 girls dancing while the band's playing, right? Perfect.
I totally forgot.
But I'm looking at this setup and I'm going, oh, I don't know. I'm worried about the Vin man. If he starts do-si-doing around the stage, this could go sideways, right? Sure as
Which is
hell.
exactly what happened. But
Yeah, jumps down, jumps down and is, doing the bump and grind with one of the chicks. Yeah, on the way up, he catches the toe, remember? And down he goes.
And down he
here's
goes,
the
yeah.
awesome part. Like the pro he is, he kind of crawls to the front of the stage and just starts singing to the chick in front, eh? Like nobody, like it's part of the fucking show. No big deal. Anyway, I just wanted to jar your memory on that one because I just thought it was hilarious and sad.
I think that eclipsed the entire evening, that I forgot that you were there. That's what's so funny
That's
about
right.
it. Yeah. It's
How could you forget me, Todd?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's like
We
Vince
took a
got
picture and everything.
That's right. Yeah. No, Vince got on stage. I remember that he was wearing Uggs, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh,
like,
dude.
Oh my God.
it was in very, 100% Vince Neil mode. And the fact that he kind of like wiped out during the thing, I was just kind of like,
Oh my God.
here we go. It's going to be like on Blabbermouth tomorrow, or like, TMZ that Vince died at his own club or something.
Oh my God.
But he survived it. He's
did. Oh,
he's
yeah.
always been really, he's not even here anymore. He's in Nashville now, but he's always been really good to me. I don't think he ever retained who I was, but I think he kind of like, we'd always be playing some kind of event. And one time we played a charity benefit thing, and we had a bunch of guests coming up to sing, and it was basically the Sinners playing. It was the Sinners. And Sammy had just come up. Slash got up with Sammy, oddly enough. And we did Rock Candy. It was cool because Sammy was like, you guys just sing the choruses, I'll sing everything else. And we're like, okay. It was Zach Throne and I. So we were happy to just be kind of like, singing I Can't Try 55 and, all those songs, and we just killed it. Like Sammy's just a pro. So he walks off, and I remember like, then Rundgren got up, Todd Rundgren. So I think Kip
My
Winger.
feet are getting sore, Todd. My feet
Yeah,
are
I know. I'm sorry. I'm dropping names.
Exactly.
But it was a weird night. It was like Alice Cooper was there. Kip Winger got up to play bass. That's why I walked off. I go, Kip, play bass. And then as I'm walking by, Vince goes like, hey man, how you doing? And I'm like, good. He goes, you guys learn the songs, right? And I go, yeah, of course we know the songs. It was like Girls, Girls, Girls. There's a bunch of songs. And he goes, like, the vocals and stuff, right? Because I think he'd seen us just crush these like Hagar tunes, and I think he was concerned because if you watch Motley, all those big vocals are like
Sure.
coming from outer space, basically.
Yes, they are.
So and I'm like, we got it, dude, don't worry. He's like, oh, okay, cool. I could tell he was really excited to be there, and really, but I think he kind of like watched that Sammy thing going, damn, is this the level? Like the bar was set, boom, like now
Pretty high.
we can't, don't want to be under that. And I was like, dude, we got this, don't worry about it. And we did. We just did all those songs.
Oh, you
again,
guys smoke, man.
Zach Throne and I would, we can carry that stuff, no problem.
Oh yeah, you guys are just killer.
That's part of the fun of being in Vegas. The weirdest thing is Vegas is becoming, Sebastian Bach is here now, Gene Simmons is here now, so it's becoming more and more. I was just talking to somebody else recently who's coming out this way. I can't remember, but yeah, it's becoming like more and more that kind of thing where you're going to be at a club and guess who's here and guess who's getting up.
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
Yeah, it's going to be good times. The Roaring 20s, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey man, let's talk about Toque for a minute. New gig announced August 14th with Tom Cochrane and Glass Tiger and Prism. You got to be stoked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a blast. Well, I mean, it's the first time we've played since the last thing we did was a thing called Telemiracle, the telethon in Saskatchewan in March. So it was just like a few days before they closed down the world. So it's been, I guess, maybe about 16, 17 months by the time we get on stage. So it'll be really fun. I mean, the fact that we're playing with Prism, somebody wrote, what are they going to play if they're playing with Prism and Tom Cochrane? I go, well, that's 2 songs. It's like, we know some other songs, So yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like, well, there's not an entire set based on like, the loving homage to Tom Cochrane and Red Rider, but there's also, we don't do any Glass Tigers, so they're safe. But
that'd be hilarious. You guys open up with Lunatic Fringe.
And don't forget me when you're gone and Brian Adams shows up. You know what I mean?
play like 5 Prism songs and then walk off.
Yeah.
Like, what the?
That's Edmonton, yeah.
Edmonton, yeah, that's gonna be it's gonna be really exciting. And I well, the other thing I'm really happy about is playing. Toque tends to be kind of like, we get signed on to these things. This is gonna be great. We got to do this. It's gonna be exciting. Playing like the Grey Cup party or some sort of like opening of NHL games and stuff. And I'm like, why is it always like snowing and we're playing outside? Like, why? Yeah. Who put this thing? Did I agree to this? Well, I was like, I got to talk to myself more often. But
you should be okay with this one. Yeah.
Yeah, this one I'm like, okay, fine.
Now is it full on, or is it those silos? Like, is it limited seating? Like, do you know anything about that?
You know what?
Like,
I actually don't know.
oh,
I
okay.
actually been meaning to ask that question myself, because I mean,
Just
here
curious.
it went from being like, I'd be talking to my friends and they'd be doing some like arena to like a very small amount of people, and I'd be like, oh, that's gonna be so weird. And
Right.
then now it's normal. Like now it's down here, it's like you're just playing regular shows. And I would assume there's going to be a lag on that in Canada as far as like how soon they're going to bounce back. So I assume it's probably going to be an outdoor thing and probably somewhat controlled in
Because
some
you see
fashion.
these outdoor gigs with like tiny little, I don't know, box seats, for lack
Oh,
of a
really?
better
It's so funny because I've played a number of those kind of like classic rock kind of events in Canada, and it'll be kind of like that anyway. Like people bring their lawn chairs,
word. That's right.
kind of set up, cooler. Life is a high, like kind of it's like having the time of their lives, Trooper or whoever. So I got a feeling it's going to be kind of like that, but just a little bit more spaced out. I hope. We'll see.
Okay, man, I'm just going to keep switching gears on you. You ready?
Of course.
Let's talk about this latest project, Minefield, because
Sure.
I was really impressed by this album, and I want to know how this band came together. I mean, I'm a geek, so I know all about it, but our listeners might not. And a couple guys from Ace Frehley's band and this Brandon Fields guy who I knew nothing about. So tell us how this came together and how that went down, man.
It's such a funny thing because the idea of doing this kind of project, say, well, if even like five years ago would have been like, what? How is this working? But it was literally, pretty fresh, about a month into quarantine, where I was, Tiger Kinging it like everybody else and whatever, it's kind of like sitting around, not doing anything. And it took me a while to kind of get into that mode where like, I don't have to do anything, because I was still kind of like, I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I should be somewhere. And then eventually I just kind of like just dove in both feet. Like, this is it. I could just chill now. So then when Jeremy and Matt both reached out from Ace Frehley's band, Jeremy, of course, played with Gene Simmons as well. Matt has played with Mr. Big and a bunch of other stuff. They both said, hey, we're doing this thing. I think it's if my memory serves correct, it was like, do you want to sing a song? I was like, hell yeah. I'm like literally just set up in here and sing a song, or whatever. And they vouched for Brandon, who was very young. He's like in his 20s, mid 20s now. So it was Brandon's thing, essentially, is what happened. So Brandon and I get in touch. He starts sending me riffs, and we just started building songs together. And it was really, it was going really great. Like 3 songs. I was like, there's 3, and then it just kept kind of growing. And it was kind of Brandon's project. He was going to sing. It was basically, he was going to be like the Brandon Fields project or something like that, the Brandon Fields band or whatever. And it just sort of became more and more like it was literally like, I was like, who's going to play bass on this? And they were like, we're not sure yet. And I go, well, I can play bass on it. And they're like, okay, cool. So it just kind of happened that everything sort of fell together, that there was a lineup in place, and I'm really proud of the way it came together. The fact that like none of us were in the same room at the same time. There literally was made, man. Like Matt would do drum tracks. We kind of wrote the songs in demo form and just sort of sent them around. And then Matt would do the drums and then send them around, and we would just do our stuff to it. And that was it, and then we had Anthony Fox, mix it together and make it sound cohesive and like one thing. And it turned out great. Like I really think that things like Alone Together are really strong. And it's one of those things where if there was no COVID, that never would have happened, because nobody would have had the time. I mean, those guys would have, they're going to be out right away with Alice Cooper and Ace Frehley. So it's immediately like we're all road dogs, kind of constantly doing our thing. So yeah, so it was really kind of one of those magical moments of like, yeah, this seems like fun. There was no reason to say no. You know what I mean? I was like, nah, I kind of like, I'm really busy watching,
Tiger King,
The Office, all like 9 seasons for the 12th time. It's like I'm like, no, I if anything, it was sort of good for me to kind of like get off the couch and use that part of my brain that had, because in a lot of the things that I do when it comes to Slash and a lot of that kind of stuff, the cool thing about all these different projects is that there's so many, like they're always a different part of my brain. Slash is a different thing. Toque is a different thing. This Minefield thing was a totally different thing. And just, having to go into it and every project has a different way of creating music and making music. And it's all creative in different parts of your brain and your ability. It's just a matter of kind of like, well, how do you want to do this? And So it was really fun. And I think it's the kind of thing that, you know, I'm glad we did it. I don't know if we'll ever get to play a show or ever get to do it again, but I have no regrets about it. It was really fun. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, it's like most of my career, I think these are all songs that will probably be appreciated more when I'm gone. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you know what? The guy was pretty good. You know,
I'm interested more in like dive a little deeper into that recording process compared to Slash, where you guys are in the same room. Like I can imagine, but
yeah,
does it streamline it? You're less apt to go, hey, can you change that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, when you're jamming a song with guys, like say if the Minefield guys were in the same room together, I'm sure we would have been like, well, let's shorten that, or like maybe like, you know, there may be more of a discussion of that, but because it's sort of like, you know, once we've kind of worked through the demo process and the drum tracks come in, it's kind of, you could still kind of go back and go, can you take the second verse and go to halftime, you know, that whole thing. But it was sort of like part of the charm of it was the sort of punk rock, you know, just sort of like, let's just roll with this and run with it. You know what I mean? And that kind of made it more fun in a way that it didn't, because there was also, you know, that was never discussed, but there is sort of an overall sense of like, look, we're not living in a world of like, well, what's this going to mean for middle America? You know, give me a break, bro. It's like, you know, it's like people aren't buying records. You know, that's a whole other conversation. And I just thought, let's just have fun making music. And if it's, you know, if anything happens, then it's a bonus. If nothing happens, then that's to be expected. You know, I mean,
the fact that you could even do that is fucking awesome, right? Really?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what it was to me. It was like, look, I love Matt and Jeremy, and I came to love Brandon as well. The weirdest thing is that Brandon and I, although we wrote like a ton of songs together, have never met in person. Never met in person. We put out a record together, and you know, we made a video remotely that they edited together into this thing. But I'm sort of like, the older I get, I have less hangups about like, you know, stroking your beard about like, well, this has to be that and that has to be this. And I'm kind of like, you know, in the blink of an eye, I'm going to be 65 or something like that, going like, it, you know, it is what it is. You know, I always kind of feel like I'd rather, I don't know, like do it and kind of go, well, that wasn't quite right, than sort of like sit in my, you know, in my basement, kind of like, well, wait till they hear this next thing I'm working on for the next Chinese democracying my way through the next record.
How long did it take, Todd, that whole process? Like maybe take it from pre-production, because I don't know how much time you guys spent back and forth, and I'm sure that was kind of whatever, but you know, kind of getting serious, going, okay, we're going to do this record.
Yeah, it feels like it went pretty fast. It wasn't all done as like, here's 10 songs or whatever. It was kind of more like, you know, here's an idea. What do you think of this? Great. Let's bounce it back and forth, you know, and then Matt goes into a session of probably doing 3 songs because that's what we had, you know, and then we go, oh, cool. And then everybody starts doing their thing. And you know, it's sort of like, that's kind of how it happened. Like it was sort of like in pieces. And then all of a sudden you're like, do you want to do All American Man? I'm like, oh, I've never heard that song before. Yeah.
Right.
That song is so in your fucking wheelhouse. It isn't even funny. When I saw that song title, I'm like, please let that be what I think it is. It's so awesome, dude.
You know what's so funny about that is that it actually, Brandon had this grandiose idea that he was going to convince Sebastian Bach to sing it, which is funny because I know Sebastian well enough, and he's kind of like one of those guys that will wildcard things once in a while, but he's also impossible to tell if he's going to be like,
right,
that sounds like fun, or if it's going to be like, you know, distracted by whatever else he's got going on, making detailed cameo videos that he makes.
Oh, I love those, man.
Aren't they the best?
Aren't they the best? I've
watched him in person made like 3, and I'm just like, it's always something. But
there should be a making of Sebastian Bach's fucking cameo
documentaries behind the scenes of his actual. But you know, so it didn't really, I don't know what happened with it, but it was kind of like, do you want to sing it? And I'm like, of course I'll sing it. It's like, you know, I think, and also the irony of a Canadian guy singing 6 Foot Hot Look All American Man was kind of.
Sure.
I guess
Right.
Sebastian would have been the same thing, wouldn't it?
Technically, that's
True, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Cause I can make some time. You got your ticket and you're looking fine. You're staring at the land. You want to land a 6-foot hot look all-American man. Yeah.
Hey, before we leave Minefield, I mean, I could go through every track, but I won't do that to you.
I'll do it.
Talk about Day by Day. You want to do that? Day by Day. I thought of Kiss. I just got a bit of a Kiss thing going on. But the lyric, they chased me out of there like a discontinued model, found my new home at the bottom of a bottle. And I think that you say nothing, Arizona. My question to you is, have you seen the Francis McDormand movie, Nomadland?
I have.
That's totally, I thought of that immediately.
It's funny that you bring that up because actually that was the reference in me.
No
like
way.
When I was writing that song, it was sort of like, the funny thing is I'd seen in some other movie, there was a place called Nothing, Arizona. And it said, Nothing, Arizona, population 4. It was like, I think it might've been like I don't remember what the hell it was. I wish I could find it. But now I've since then I've gone into my phone just to Google Nothing, Arizona, and it's population 0. Like it's literally, but the fact that there's a real place called Nothing, somebody, what should we call this place? Nothing.
Well, I'm off to the desert. You won't find me anymore. Maybe nothing, Arizona. Population 4. Well, some of us are saints, some of us are sinners. Most of us are both with the in-betweeners. I just keep my head down and see what fate has in store.
Even at the beginning of that film, they talk about Empire, Nevada, which was in the northeast corner of Nevada. It said like in January, this textile plant closed or whatever it was. And by July, it no longer had a zip code.
It's
Like
crazy,
it didn't
right?
exist. And then it's a whole film about people living in vans and Winnebagos and just traveling around because it's a deeper conversation about like these senior citizens. And I'm like, how did this happen that these people don't have like a comfortable place to live in and just kind of ride out their years? It was really heartbreaking. So
It really was.
in a roundabout way, it did. A lot of those songs on that record are so much about the things that I was watching, which is kind of mildly embarrassing. The song My Disease was based on all these documentaries I was watching, especially The Vow on HBO Max was the
Right.
which is a really interesting one because it's the Nexium cult that was happening. A whole huge Vancouver hang on that. And I knew some of the people that were kind of connected within that Smallville TV show and actors from around town. And it was really one of those things that was not super close to home because it didn't have anything to do with me, but I did know people kind of, sort of not involved, but, sort of like within that circle. So in watching it, it was just kind of like, I watched Heaven's Gate documentary, Waco, all those things. I'm always fascinated by the idea of, because they always seem to start okay. Like Jim Jones, even, it's always kind of like,
Starts off okay.
yeah, we're going to start this thing and it's about this and we're really looking out for each other. And it slowly gets crazier and crazier. And then eventually it's like, now I have to have sex with all your wives.
It always boils down to one guy wanting all the chicks. That's all it is.
It's always that way. And you're like, who falls for that? I mean, I guess because it's so gradual, and everybody sort of starts the same way. But it's like,
right.
I mean, you can read the Bible. Jesus never pulled that card. It's like,
I still don't see how anybody can fall for that. Like you got to be kind of missing some chromosome or something to really kind of be interested and then follow through on that shit.
Well, I think though that the interesting thing about Nexium was that it worked out as a business thing. Like, it was sort of like, like getting out there and really
Right.
kind of, whole I don't know what they called it exactly, but it really did seem like the kind of thing where you go, oh, okay, but it's always like, but it's going to cost you $3,000. I'm like, dude,
That's right.
Back then, if somebody said I got to pay $3,000, I go, dude, I got 2 kids, and it's like I could barely pay for this damn car. It's like I'm not giving you anything, but all that kind of stuff where you have to kind of that would immediately make me just kind of like, I just can't participate. So that song, My Disease, just sort of like, it struck me as like, at least what I was trying to say was, come and share in my disease. It just feels like broken people who kind of like manage to kind of there's a lot of people with charisma and a lot of people who there's something to be said about good salesmen, even just in regular life, that guy who can really just sort of sell you on anything.
But isn't that the sad part, Todd, that these people are broken?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's sad ultimately.
It is. Yeah. Day. I mean, and they certainly are broken a lot more after something like that happens. Like watching during NXIVM, there's the NXIVM documentary. There's a lot of things about people trying to get their kids out of that thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that woman, like trying to get her daughter out of there. It's horrible. But it's just funny to me because I can go through the course of that record and go, well, that's from that one documentary. It's like, well, most people write about like what they're going through, and I'm like, well, I'm going through watching television on the couch. Sure. I'm like, yeah.
But that was one of my favorite tracks on the record, honestly.
Oh well, thank you very much.
Was that one, and the line of how much can you swallow and all that stuff. It was just like, yeah, this was a pretty aggressive, dirty track, and it hit home pretty good. Yeah,
well, I'm glad to hear that. You never know, Miles Kennedy and I talk about. Watch your feet, gentlemen. I'm dropping names.
There we go. Not again.
Everybody kind of hobbles out of here after this interview. But no, Miles Kennedy and I talk about this a lot because when I first started working with Miles in 2000, well, on the first record we made together, Apocalyptic Love, in 2012 it came out.
12, yep.
Yeah, so we started playing together in 2010, but that was all support of the solo album. But he was so stressed out during the process of that record, and we would ride to the studio every day, and he would just have this kind of like, oh, because he didn't know he was going to be. The weird thing was he was playing guitar on it as well, and he wanted to just focus on. He had to write the lyrics, he had to sing the vocals, but now when I talk to him, when he says like, he goes, I've learned to be a lot more like, if Slash sends me the riff or Mark Tremonti or whatever he's working on, it's just to kind of just. Like it's not like the first thing you think of. I wrote this song in 5 minutes. It's like that's never a good sign. But yeah. But he sort of like follows his instinct and doesn't really kill himself if it's not working. So it's like if someone like Slash is sending over 20 tracks, focus on the ones that you kind of connect with, and it comes easy. Like there's nothing wrong with kind of something that you really have to work at. And that said, there are still times where you write something and then you kind of someone goes, what about this? What about that? Then you can alter around that. And I'm sort of the same way now. Like there was times where I would sit and stroke my beard and think about this and work on something forever. And then sometimes I just feel like it's like, just write, what you feel and what feels right and what feels. Using words like authentic is very dangerous because, rock and roll and music is, authenticity is what people sort of kind of get attached to. Like they think this seems sort of real, but I was never in a cult. So it was just me kind of commenting on what I thought was, watching this kind of thing or reading.
Well, other than being a Kiss fan, there's that.
That's a cult. That's a big cult.
It's like
from a very young age.
Exactly. Yeah. They indoctrinated us.
It's not a cult. It's an army.
They indoctrinated us very young. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Totally.
Dana Gould had a tweet today that said something like, thank you for your service also apply to the Kiss Army? And I'm like, yeah, because we definitely as an army have definitely put that time in for sure.
Okay, Todd, that's a perfect segue into the Kiss Cruise Band. I'm just wondering what's going on there. I saw photos on Instagram. You guys are clearly doing something. Can you tell me what that is, if anything?
Yeah, it's like we're basically baby stepping our way into that process. Process. See, I've been living in the States way too long. It's the best, dude. I'll be sitting in a restaurant and I'll hear the next booth over ask where the washroom is, and I'll go, Canadians.
How about the pasta?
Yeah, exactly. It's always. I haven't been called out on anything in a long time because I've been down here so long that I just kind of adjust my. It's not like you do it on purpose. You just kind of adjust because you go, I don't have to explain that the washroom is the restroom. It's like,
right.
It's like, I just say, where's the restroom? And then I go to the restroom. But the other day I was asking Slash's tech, actually, I go, I said something about Yamaha guitars. And he goes, Yamaha? And he goes, and I go, oh, sorry, Yamaha guitars.
yeah.
Yamaha.
And I roll my eyes
Sorry.
10 ways of Sunday. But it's like, you know, I go, it doesn't matter, because to me, a Yamaha was like a snowmobile as a kid.
Right.
It's a dirt bike.
Yeah, exactly. The Yamaha guitars, they make all kinds of, it's one of the farthest reaching companies in the world. Anyway, I wasn't going to say, oh yeah, so we...
Kiss Cruise, yeah.
Yeah, so Zach Throne has been playing with Corey Taylor from Slipknot, and we're dropping names. We're dropping names
There
everywhere.
we go again.
With Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour, and he did a solo album. It's great, and he's been actually they actually were like out touring during this whole thing, so they were doing this sort of socially distanced thing, and probably by the end of the tour, it was probably starting to become more and more like, what's the point of socially distancing? They probably just started playing shows. So, but that's been really good for him. So he's been busy with that. The rest of us kind of, before he went off on tour, we went in and cut a couple things. Nothing really too exaggerated, more like just kind of getting our feet wet and just sort of getting a feel for things. Bruce and I have been writing songs together for quite a while, just kind of like him sending over riffs and me sending things back. And I mean, I get really excited about it, because I think Bruce is a very underrated in many ways. Like his input on all the stuff that he was involved in Kiss, you know what I mean? Like he did a lot of great work. I would like very much for him to be able to kind of like stake that claim a little bit, like, here's 2021, put a flag in it, and this is what we're doing. And I think it'd be good for us to do something that's not, you know, that's something of our own, you know, in this day and age. It's weird being in Toque, because Toque is, you know, what started us as a complete fun thing. The Kiss Cruise band is very much the same thing, where it's like, it starts off as fun, this is an homage to Canadian rock. This is an homage to Kiss of Bruce's era. And then it's sort of like, and then the Toque guys go, let's write a song, you know, and now this is like, let's write a song, you know. So they both have these sort of like beginnings that sort of started as just like, let's get in a room and play some music together that we love. That sort of naturally just turns into original music, because that's what you do, you know.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that it will lead to something that's tangible and kind of out there, and hopefully I'm excited about the stuff we've written together.
Cool.
So we'll see.
And I'm sure it's not lost on you that, I mean, I know you well enough to know your first Kiss concert was the same as me, Animalize.
Mm-hmm.
Fitz was in union with Bruce, and now you guys are playing with him. That's got to be a fucking pinch me kind of thing, no?
It's actually so weird. Like, I say it all the time, like all this name dropping I'm doing. It's kind of like, it's like, I always think of, do you ever see the film Ed Wood with Johnny Depp?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Martin Landau, and
Yeah.
it's a Tim Burton film. But there's a this is not really the case, but there have been times in my life where, you know, where Ed Wood is like, Johnny Depp's character is like, wow, it's Bela Lugosi. Oh my God. And he's like, totally like, holy cow. And then like a year later, it's like Bella's like calling him to try and get him out of jail, or somebody's like, oh. And you just see him kind of like,
Yeah.
And it's not like that with Bruce, but I know a lot of people who are like, you know, when they show up on my phone, I just kind of go, oh boy, what's this guy? It's like, but it'll be some guy I watched on MTV when I was a kid, and now I got to go like, this is gonna be a half hour. But it is weird when it's somebody that you sort of followed, and then you're like, oh boy. But it starts to become like that, because you start to know people, you start to kind of, you know, and it becomes very, very normal. But every once in a while, I will stop and go, remember that 14-year-old kid going, you know, standing at the Agrodome in Regina, Saskatchewan, just like, you wanted the best, you got the best. It was like a religious moment for me, you know, when they came out in Detroit Rock City, and it was like, and everybody's like, and a lot of people were like, they wouldn't have known the name Bruce Kulick at that time because it was so fresh. They were like,
Yeah.
they didn't. And I was like, that I knew who he was, because I was one of those guys that followed everything. And I knew, well, it used to be Mark St. John. He's on the record, but he's not there anymore. Now it's Bruce Kulick. You know, I was that guy.
Oh yeah.
Randy's that guy too.
Oh yeah, I'm that guy, Todd. Yeah. But you guys got Doc, and I love Queensryche. I love both those bands, but I want to see George Lynch, but we got Queensryche. They did the switch there, right? So
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to Jeff Pilson the other day. Watch your feet. And
oh, God damn. I'm gonna need crutches after
I
this.
know.
I'm gonna need a lift home. Yeah, like there's no way I'm wheeling out of here, man. But
and it was funny though, because I gave him the whole thing. I go, dude, it was like, you have no idea what a big deal that was to us,
Oh.
because, you know, these were like, you know, we were young enough that those bands, actually coming to our neck of the woods was like, oh my God, you know, and Jeff was as particularly inspiring to me because I don't know if you remember, but Jeff, oh, you didn't see them, you saw Queensryche, but Jeff was like, he was playing bass, singing all the backups like a bird. He had a keyboard, he had like Taurus pedals. He was like kind of a prog rock guy. And I was like, who's that guy? Like I found him to be the standout guy, but so many of those little elements, like every show that I've seen, especially when I was young, have kind of wormed their way into my brain to go like, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, look what Pilson's doing now. He's running Foreigner. I mean, this guy's dialed, man.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy. I always wonder, like, well, what's going to be my like Foreigner, like when I'm 10 years from now? What'll that be? I'm trying to think like what.
You'll be Paul Stanley in the new Kiss 2.0.
That's right.
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm too old for that. I think
you bastard, hey?
They got to find like a 20-something-year-old kid to do that. Otherwise, they're going to be changing out Paul Stanleys every 10 years.
They're going to do a new Phantom of the Park just to make it better. And, it's going to be all good.
Redo everything. Yeah.
They got
like at all. Yeah.
James Cameron directing. It'll be next time. Yeah.
Hey, totally. I'm curious what you're doing Sunday night at about what time? It's 9:00. Any idea?
Sunday at 9. What's the Sunday at 9?
On A&E. I think I.
Oh yeah. I'll be like you. I'll be watching A&E.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, part of me, I'm kind of like at that point now where I'm sort of like, well, what can they possibly show me? You know, like I have a certain amount of like old school kind of like, I've been there, done that kind of thing. But and it's weird, kind of like half knowing these guys. Like we know Eric well enough to be like, like where you're like, oh, I can't make that coffee because where 20 years ago I'd be like, the drummer for Kiss wants to have coffee. Let's go have coffee. I was like. Now I'm like a grown up and I'm like, no, I can't do that. But now when they, when the video's coming out, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm excited, but there's a part of me that's kind of like, well, I know this story. I could basically do the documentary, but I'm assuming, I think there's some footage in there that's unreleased is what I'm
Yes.
told.
I'm the same as you, dude. I've seen it all. I've heard all the sound bites a million times, but I guess from what I gather, the director or producer got Gina Paul to drop the wall a little bit.
Oh,
so they say some shit, not the usual talking points. And there's some footage in there that nobody, even your geekiest fucking Kiss fan, has seen.
There's been things going around and my friends are sending me this. Have you seen this? And I'm like, cool. I'm like, and they go, no, you don't understand. That footage has never been seen before. I go back and look at it again. I go, yeah, I guess you're right. And it's like, but it's like, it's like the Kiss thing and the Kiss cruise and all that. It's borderline Star Trek behavior, really.
Borderline.
Borderline.
And you're in both those camps, aren't you?
I know, I'm in all those camps. In the Star Wars camp, it's like, well, in episode 15, when they, it's like, there's a lot of those conversations. And in Kiss, those conversations happen deep, dude. It's like, when they're like, when guys get into like, well, technically this costume's from the Destroyer era, but you can see the Destroyer and the Rock and Roll Over era are the same costume, but there's slight variations in Paul Stanley's costume. And you're like,
he's got a different boot. The costumes weren't finished yet. So he's got the alive boots with the Destroyer top. Oh, that's me, dude, to a fucking T.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's still to this day, people, even like just recently, somebody was sending around these photos of Eddie Van Halen with a Yamaha guitar that he had. Oh, sorry, Yamaha guitar.
Yamaha.
Yeah, that was like, a blue one with stripes, not as heavily striped as the Frankenstein, and I was like, I've never seen this before, so it is kind of interesting when you sort of, lived in this world for so long, in those worlds, that like when somebody does show you something you've never seen before, you're like, wow, I've never seen this. It's weird because we were in like LA shortly after Ed died, and this is so weird because my wife and I we always stop in Pasadena on the way back to Vegas because there's a great coffee shop called Earth Cafe. They have them in LA, but we always think, let's go stop at the one in Pasadena because it's kind of on the way out of town, and it kind of breaks it up because the hardest part of driving out of LA and driving through the desert is it takes forever to get out of Los Angeles. You're like,
yes,
it's like an hour and a half, and we're still in Los Angeles, And I literally just was sitting there while my wife went into the coffee shop, and I just Googled, where was the Van Halen house in Pasadena? 10 minutes away. So I go,
no way.
I have to go over and just kind of like look at it. So, which is weird. Like, I'm not really that kind of guy. I don't really go and like, especially because it was mildly, I wouldn't say more, but it was completely from a respectful place. I was just,
I would have done it.
And I drive down the street and I kind of drive past the house, but I see these guys kind of like, I'm driving slowly because I'm kind of like, oh, it's somewhere around here. And I see this group of guys and they look at me and they just point to the house. Like there's some other group of like rock and roll guys. And I go, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I turn around and I pull up to the house and you know, some people had laid flowers on the, you know, they hadn't lived there in 40, 50 years or something like that. So,
Right.
But it was, you know, it was a heavy thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
And during this whole thing, what I think really makes it interesting is this return to things being open is you're kind of like, I'm hoping that it means that, you know, because I've made the mistake 1,000 times. Prince, I never saw Prince. You know, it's like he was doing a residency here when I first came down here, and it was always like, yeah, and it wasn't really kind of like just wander into the Rio. It was a thing. You had to know people or have tickets or whatever to go to it. So, you know, and I was working a lot, so it wasn't kind of like, you know, I often missed those nights. But you just kind of think every time somebody comes to town, I'll go see him next time. You know, I'll go see Van Halen next time. And then it's just, then you realize that's done. That's never going to happen again. You know, I mean, I don't know what that means as far as like seeing Dave or Sammy or in whatever concoction they're going to create, but you will never see Van Halen again, and you'll never see Prince again. So, or David Bowie, or the list goes on and on and on. So
did you
now
see sorry, Todd, did you see Van Halen? Did you see them?
I finally
with
saw,
Roth?
I never saw Van Halen with Roth in the original days because we were
Me too.
too young and they never really came to my neck of the woods. And I it's one of my greatest regrets is that.
Twice.
Did you see them back then?
I saw Fair Warning was my first concert.
Dude, Fair Warning would have been.
Me and your buddy Shane Gallus were at the same show.
That's amazing.
And then I saw 84 and it was just a fucking mind blower.
You
right?
guys are old. You're old. Like,
I'm only
you know.
55. It just, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
I knew they came to Calgary and they came to Edmonton and all that, but we were like out in Saskatchewan and they just get, you know, Saskatchewan always get skipped over for Winnipeg or something.
right on.
Right.
But again, I guess it was probably one of those things. Well, I'll see them, you know, on the 1985 album, you know, that didn't happen. And then, you know, I saw Dave do a solo tour, which was really great.
The Steve Vai, Billy Sheehan.
I saw him way later. Ray Luzier from Korn was playing drums.
Oh yeah.
But Dave had, his hair was long and he was doing all the stuff and it was
The DLR band.
90%. It was 90% Van Halen with the, you know, Just Like Paradise, Yankee Rose, stuff like that. It was great to see that. But then seeing Van Halen all those years later, there's a part of me that's kind of like, I'm okay. Like I don't necessarily need to see, you know, there's some things you just want to hold on to as the way they were. Because seeing Van Halen, you know, was kind of like, it's so surreal when you're like, you know, they're older guys. Wolfie's playing bass, just killing it, singing all those harmonies.
Dave's trying to kick.
And Dave, yeah, Dave, to his credit, can still get around, but you know, it's a totally different vibe. But they were awesome, and I'm really thankful I saw them. But
I'm glad you did too. Just to see Eddie play is really the reason you go.
He's the king. Yeah, he was the undisputed king. Period.
Yeah. Okay, so back to playing with your heroes. Let's go to Slash. What's going on in the Slash camp, man? What can you tell us without catching shit from the boss? Like, what can you say?
Well, it's been such a funny time because we have every intention of having a record out somewhere in the front half of 2022. And it's just a matter of kind of, you know, connecting all those dots. Slash has to make up a bunch of Guns N' Roses dates that got postponed. So those are happening. Right. And Frank's going to be on it opening with Wolfie. So he's in Wolfie's band.
That's right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the record is crazy because it's every single note you're hearing on that thing is Wolfgang Van Halen.
That's right.
The drums, the bass, the guitar, all the vocals. It's nuts.
Wow.
It's really impressive. So
do you
Frank's
think,
doing.
Sorry, Todd. Do you think that's inborn? There's no right.
Yeah, this is a good question. Yeah,
because he's surrounded by the Van Halen brothers. Like, I fucking always wonder that if you're born with that innate thing, or is it just your environment? I mean,
I think you're absolutely right because I was having this conversation the other day about, you know, when people get into conversations like nepotism, I go, well, nepotism is only bad if the person that's benefiting from it is not like Wolfgang Van Halen.
Right.
Because there's like millions of celebrities that have existed for a long time and they've all had children and very few of them we are aware of. Do you know what I mean? Like actors, musicians, whatever, you know, it's sort of like, and just because someone has the same last name as a famous person doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be talented.
It opens the door. It doesn't keep it open.
That's exact. And the same for actors. Like you'll once in a while see, oh, that's so-and-so's kid. You're like, okay, great. I mean, but you're right. It does sort of put them like, it's sort of like that casting director goes, oh, this is a point of interest.
Right.
But if they're terrible or they're not good, then it's just kind of like, then they just hire the next actor. But with a guy like Wolfgang, there's something next level going on in there. And I think that it really clearly trickles down from Ed, his ability. But the mind-blowing thing is like, I would hire out Wolfie as a drummer. You know what I mean? Like, I just think he's got great feel, great pocket. And then obviously he was playing bass with Van Halen. He's more than qualified for that. But,
Yeah.
but nobody plays EVH like WVH. It's mind blowing. He'll just like pick up and throw down on like almost anything you can think of.
I bet.
You know,
There's got to be a book. Eddie must have given him a Bible of how
There you go.
to be like him, that his dad passed down to Eddie. And, you know, I mean, there's got to be some. It's like the pick of destiny kind of thing. You know, we got to find it. I got to go down to Pasadena and
Yeah.
find that pick.
I never got that book. I got the I got the Close Enough book. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing okay. The close enough.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, it's like, it's so funny because watch your feet. I was talking to Billy Sheehan the other day.
Hello.
Yeah, and it was difficult to really have, you know, we both have the same job, but it's kind of like talking to, you know, I don't know, like it was like he's like some other planet, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm so fascinated by, like, because I just come from a different place. I come from Gene Simmons and punk rock, and that's my thing. So listening
Nothing
to
wrong with that.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I just never really was all that. Even when it comes to guitar playing, I like guys like our friend Reed Shimizawa, who honestly is one of the greatest guitar players I know, period.
Dude.
Like, he's one of the most well-rounded guitar players I've ever known. But he's clearly one of those guys that picked up a guitar and said, and he just sort of had a natural sort of like, whether it was Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, whatever was the thing at the time. I never had that. I was like, Ace Frehley is the bar. Like, if I can play the solo for Strange Ways, I'm happy. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and I'm still struggling with that. So
Well, it's played backwards, isn't it?
it is, yeah. That might have been a bad example, but like stuff like that, I'm always kind of like I pick
Yeah.
up the guitar. Like just the other day, I was like, you know, I was listening to Barracuda by Heart in the car, and I go,
Oh my
this
God.
is a really cool guitar thing. I think I might be able to hang on this. And I sort of sat down and learned the song, and I thought, yeah, that's good enough. Like, I thought, I never really think to myself, now let's take it up a notch from there. I'm like, let's slow down. You know, it's like Ace Frehley, you know, like the 70s kind of like, you know, cool long bend kind of solos. That's my jam. I love that. Rick Nielsen with the kind of, you know, melodic kind of things. That's that's what I love. The really fast stuff, I'm always like, that's impressive and really amazing, but I never really felt like I wanted to do it. I didn't. It's like people will watch a Bruce Lee movie and go, I want to be in martial arts. I would watch Bruce Lee movies and go, that's awesome. And I'd go home and I would, you know, listen to Kiss or something.
Right. Fuck, that was, now I forgot what the Slash thing was all about. Did we answer that question? Did we get there?
Sorry, yeah. Miles has a solo record out, as you know, and he's on the road. So at some point we will reconvene.
Like, are riffs flying around yet, or like?
Oh
are
yeah,
we-
yeah. No,
Okay.
it's we are in good shape in that department. So it's the intention is to try and have something out in the new year, and nothing is really set in stone, but you know,
Right.
a lot of talk and a lot of positive. I was with Slash a bunch during lockdown because I was in LA a bunch, which was weird because we would just be like stuck here for however long. We'd think like, let's just get in the car and go to LA, because it'd be like nice to just kind of be locked down in a hotel somewhere or something. Like, before things got really serious, because LA really locked down. Like, they really became like really serious. So, but in the earlier stages, and so when I was out there, I would get together with Slash, and he had lots of things he was jamming with, and he was always like, come over and play bass on this. So I went out there a bunch of times, and we would just basically jam around on ideas with, you know, with drum machines and things like that, and just fool around. So
Is Elvis at the helm again? Like, is he involved yet, or is that too early for?
not at this point. No, I'm not really sure where that's all going to go,
Okay.
but it's such like an open book at the moment, and anything could be anything, you know. I know Slash is 100% like, he loves doing things as live as possible. Just kind of how he rolls. He wants to rent he's not sending tracks around like the way I was just talking about that. He's
I
like,
don't imagine.
let's be in a room together so you can make eye contact, and you know, if he's slowing down here, you know, that whole thing. So it's and that's, you know, it's an interesting conversation, because we're at a place, you know, all of us are collectively in a place where the conversation about taking 10 to 12 songs or 14 or whatever you want to get down with and saying, this is this thing and we're going to call it this, is that even a thing by 5 years from now? I'm not even sure, because it's becoming weirder and weirder. And these analytics, people are talking to me about like, well, they're saying that by song 7, there's a significant drop off. And I'm like,
fuck.
are these the conversations we're having? Cause it's like, it's surreal
like the
to
focus
me.
group that changes the end of the movie. Like, fuck that.
100%. It's a very difficult thing to be involved in. And that's what's the beauty of doing something like Minefield, where it's like, let's just do this thing because we want to do it. And most of the solo records that I've made and stuff like that, I've never really had like that A&R guy tapping me on the shoulder. Last time I really had the A&R guy type thing was on Static and Stereo, and it nearly killed me. So as much as I still have great feelings about that record, it was just kind of like...
You didn't hear a single, Todd?
Oh, Randy.
Yeah, that's usually the...
That's a Tom Petty line. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of like one of those things that the record industry, what I've learned over the years is you realize that, you get around producers and managers and agents and these kind of people, and they've worked with major people, but you have to stop and look at whatever your favorite producer is, whether it's Bruce Fairbairn, Bob Rock, all those kind of guys that, the classic records. If you go down their like list of the albums that they've done, there's going to be, well, that's a huge selling record. And there's a lot of records that are kind of like, well, that's a cool record, but not all of them are hits. You know what I mean? Like there are records that are like, boom, and then like, boom. And then, so you really have to kind of, what in retrospect now, if there's any advice I could have given myself, would be most importantly, and I think what I try to say to people now is, whatever you want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and try and stay as close to your own vision as you can. Because as soon as you start playing that game of like, well, this guy drives, a Porsche and has nice boots on, he clearly knows what he's talking about. It's like, but you realize that sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they've stumped, like a lot of with management and stuff like that is, they if you've stumbled into having an artist that can really deliver and have a major selling and a huge career, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the golden touch to take almost anybody and have that turn them into the next whatever the successful act is. It's so different from act to act and from artist to artist and from writer to writer that you just don't know. And I look at people like, say, Jack White now, and I go, there's a million reasons why Jack White should never have succeeded in this business. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, there's no bass player. Like, that conversation alone is like enough to be like, yeah.
But how awesome is it? It's awesome.
But he sort of had a vision and did his thing. And whether you like him or not, he's writing his own ticket. When you go to his little place in Nashville, you go, well, this is Jack White's Paisley Park. You know what I mean? Like,
Birdman, yeah.
This would be the dream for anybody, for us to kind of go, I do this. I have an audience. I talked to Jay Bentley from Bad Religion, Watch Your Feet, recently. And it was a similar thing where I was like, I'm so impressed by a group like Bad Religion, which would have started off as a punk rock band that was sleeping on floors and just traveling around the country and trying to put enough money to get gas in the van to go to the next town. And they built this machine where they knew they had this audience, and they knew it was never about like, we're going to be a platinum selling act, or we're going to write hit songs and be on MTV, where it's going to be like Whitney Houston, Bad Religion, and then like Michael Bolton. That's never going to happen. You know what I mean? But they knew that was never going to happen. So they worked their thing to a point now where they are, a very successful, in a lot of ways, cottage industry, as far as like, they just do their thing and they are very successful. That would be the dream for me. Like, I would have been perfectly happy just kind of, but of course that's a band that started when they were 15 years old and they're still together, you know what I mean? In some fashion.
Which is a miracle. Yeah.
It was a complete miracle, because most of the guys I talk to, we all have a resume list that's like 100 things, because it's, we all wanted to start a band like Aerosmith and still be doing it at 65. That's an exception to a much larger rule, especially in this day and age in this business.
Yeah.
Well, that paradigm, that was kind of in the early 80s was the pinnacle of it, and also the start of the demise. It was like, that was the teetering point. And
we didn't know it at the time, though. Yeah.
No, you didn't. And that's the hard part. And everybody wants to be a star or whatever. But the type of music you do, these guys do, or Bad Religion does, because I was in the punk scene in the early 80s. And I mean,
me too.
We knew where they were, but they weren't on the radio. It was a magazine or a cassette tape or whatever. It was very, very culture driven, and I feel like that's the way it is now mostly.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. Yeah, you're right. And it's funny to me because there's a lot of people who will suddenly go on a tirade. Eddie Trunk, let's drop that name. He'll go on a tirade to me about, and to everybody else, about how the Grammys had no rock bands. And I go, who gives a fuck about the Grammys?
Grammys, yeah.
I haven't paid attention to the Grammys my whole life. It's like Kiss isn't going to be on the Grammys. The Ramones aren't going to be on the Grammys. Iggy Pop's not on the Grammys. Why would I watch it? It's like, it's whatever is the mainstream thing this year, next year, every year. And I'm not dissing it. It's just not what I listen to, and it's just not what I'm into. So why do I care? You know?
Right. And it's following that same paradigm. You know, that's an old school thing. Grammys.
Totally.
Or broadcast TV, you know, where they're worried about the numbers at the Academy Awards. It's just not that way anymore, man. It really isn't.
Even something like Conan O'Brien leaving TBS and going to HBO Max, which is one of the giant platforms. It's like you're watching somebody who has played this game in regular television, on cable television and basic cable television for almost 30 years, is suddenly going like, this is the new thing. Whether it's Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, one of those platforms, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus. And I'm like, interesting. Because I was like watching Conan make that move. I'm like, very interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think that this similar thing in music, as you guys can attest to as well, is 90% of the reason to make a record is to go on the road. It's like, and for rock bands especially, it's created a culture that is about building your audience one set of ears at a time, and just sort of, getting out there and really kind of slugging it out. And I think that that's largely where I came from. And it's basically the way it's going to be until I'm looking for my Jeff Pilson Foreigner gig, or say whatever version of that is, it'll probably be something, the Canadian version of that. I'm trying to think what that would be, but I'll figure that out.
They're still doing it pretty heavy.
Yeah, Trooper's fine. Yeah, they'll be around for a long time. Yeah, we'll all be like old men going, "How are Troopers still around?" Like,
right?
Yeah.
Hey man, we won't keep you too much longer. I have a request. I want the Dirty Movies. You, Toshi, Shane, Corey. Light Up the Sky.
Light Up the Sky, dude.
Dude, you are those two. You only done 2 covers, right?
Yeah, we did.
Dude, oh my god, they're so fucking good.
I know, dude. It was.
I just couldn't stop smiling. Like, it was just awesome.
It is funny to me because Van Halen's one of those things where, like, I'm really particular about Van Halen. Like, when Sammy Hagar got involved, and the funny thing is, I love Sammy Hagar. I actually have huge respect for him as a vocalist and as a writer. I think he does great work. But what they became in that version of the band, to me, was something totally different. And I liked a lot of what was going on there. Whereas with that first chapter of Van Halen is untouchable. You know what I mean? Yep. It's like, it is like I can't imagine, like Slash tells me, and Zach Throne was at the same concert, of how they were in California. There was an outdoor show, and it was like, I think Aerosmith was on it. I know that, but it was like one of those California jam things. And Van Halen was early in the day on the first album, or maybe second album. I don't remember what it was, but anybody who was there just goes like, everything else was rendered invisible by this 45-minute set or whatever it was. It was just like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I can't imagine, because then I remember Slash saying that Aerosmith came on, and it was you couldn't tell what song it was. Steven was falling down. It was that real low period for those guys.
Draw the line area.
Draw the line,
totally. But the thing is, like, when you think about, like, say, the other heavy rock bands at that time, Aerosmith, Sabbath, all those bands were going through that down period where Ozzy and that whole thing was falling apart. But then Van Halen sneaks in, and you wouldn't want that band to open your show.
Nope.
It would decimate you. You would be like ruined. You got to follow this. It's like
the energy level. Oh my god.
Yeah, and like, you've got the greatest front man in rock and roll history, especially that particular chapter of him.
Yeah.
And that band. It's like, I mean, sure, the guitar player clearly, but people sort of forget that Michael Anthony, he's one of those guys that unfortunately gets mentioned last because he happened to be playing in that band, but he is
right.
a force to be reckoned with. And Alex Van Halen, I say all the time, he has like prog stuff going on. Like, there's stuff, you can't just jam Van Halen songs. You can jam Running with the Devil and a few things like that, but a lot of those songs you kind of have to know how they go, because there's
totally underrated.
Loss of Control. Try that one.
Well, yeah, exactly. Even like, I talk about like jamming Unchained. You know how it goes to Dan at to gant to gant. There's a whole thing that goes on there where you're like, what is going on here? Like, you know, like and you're like, I just want to play like Ramones and Cold Gin or something like that. It's like you want to just jam. You think that Van Halen sounds like it'll be kind of fun and easy, but then you get into it, you're like, whoa, you just back away. Like, ain't talking about love. I can get through that, you know.
I have a question before we get off topic here one more time, is with Kiss.
Never heard of it.
Kiss. Favorite Kiss song. Go.
Oh my
Favorite
God.
Kiss song.
Yes.
That's so hard.
No, it isn't. it's just a question. No one's gonna die.
What makes the world go round?
I'm just curious if you got one and what it is, because Randy and I did a top 10 on that.
That's right.
It was pretty interesting.
Mine was Deuce, no brainer. Deuce, yeah.
Mine was Cold Gin, but that's it.
Cold Gin. So you know what's interesting about that is you guys both picked songs from the first album, and I've been flying the flag of the first album. The first album to me is in many ways the greatest, the best Kiss rock.
It's wall to wall, dude.
Because it is jam packed. Like every single song, except for Kissin' Time
Kissin'
and maybe
Time,
Love Theme.
Yeah.
It's kind of like every other song on that record could be played live right now, and we would be like, and the crowd would go crazy. You know, maybe Sunday Driver might be kind of, or Let Me Know.
Let Me Know. Nice. Sunday Driver. There you go.
Might be mildly kind of like weird, but every other song, you know, Black Diamond, 100,000 Years, Strutter, Deuce, Cold Gin. Am I missing anything? Anyway, all those songs right there could be played in the set today, and you wouldn't miss a beat. That said, I don't know if I could really like say favorite song, but for whatever reason, Detroit always sort of lands on the sort of
that was number 2 for me. Yeah.
If I had to kind of like plant a flag and say, like, if no one had ever heard Kiss before and they'll say, well, who's this band? I might have to play them that song and go, you know,
right. With the extended intro.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I think it's weird for me because I think, I think Deuce would definitely be up there, because I think Deuce would be my Gene and Detroit would be my Paul, just to kind of go,
right.
This is what this is.
I feel so validated.
Deuce is like, is unparalleled in
that riff is so cool.
Its power and the fact that it opened up that first, because the first album I ever had was the Kiss Alive 1. So that's all cemented in me, like, you know, that,
yeah, of course,
that's what the opening song is supposed to be, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that was the big discussion on that, was the fact that the song, we had to tell which record it was, and none of my choices were from the very first record. They were all off that Alive 1.
Yes,
because it just was so much better, you know, in my ears. Obviously the first thing I heard, but yeah, it's amazing how that changed.
When you go back to the first album, the tempos are all slow. The guitar tones are really clean. Everything's very. I
still like it, but yeah,
I love it. Yeah, because it for a long time I was sort of like that. I kind of poo-pooed that album for that very reason. But when I go back to it now, I just can't help but look at the set list or the song list alone and go like, it's up there with one of the, you know, some of the best Led Zeppelin 1, Ramones' first album. A lot of the best albums in the band's entire catalog can be their first album, but that's arguable. But I mean, some of the best debut albums of all time anyway.
I agree.
Well, they weren't listening to A&R guys though. See, that's where it gets, it falls off the cliff, right? These guys, they were just doing their shit.
Exactly. And you can kind of tell when they do start, because it starts to get a little shady.
It gets a little shandy. It gets a little
shandy. I'm going to go home and listen to that on repeat tonight because I love it so much.
You know what?
I'm so hit in Australia.
I like Unmasked. I don't even give a shit.
I it's funny because we sent around this thing today with me and my friends where when Dana Gould put out that, you know, member of the Kiss, does the Kiss Army also have the thank you for your service? And my friends were passing it around, and somebody said something about like, you know, I went AWOL around Hot in the Shade or something like that. You know, it's like
that was a tough one.
Yeah, I was like, Hot in the Shade was the first Kiss album. This is how crazy I am. Is the first one I did not buy opening day. Like I was on the road as a young guy playing in a band, so it kind of just got past me. But I wasn't like kind of like beating down the door like the new Kiss album's out, I got to get to the store. It was just kind of like at that phase where I was like, okay. I actually, there's a lot of great stuff on that record now, and a lot of it we do play in the Bruce Kulick thing.
That's
too,
right.
so.
Yeah.
But you know, it's pizza to me. It's pizza. I really, there's not a bad
It's
one for me.
pizza. Yeah,
It's
totally.
like, I love it all.
Okay, I want to end with Beau and I want some advice. He doesn't even know I'm going to ask this, but
No idea.
every Thursday when you do your Todd Talks to, like, we're pretty new at this. We're 50 episodes in. We don't know what the fuck we're doing.
You think I do?
And you're connected, so you get these great guests. How much prep do you do? Do you just fucking wing it? Or are you like me? Like, I over prep and then I don't even use it usually. Well, half of it, let's say. Like, you should see what I got on you here. It's just bananas.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I was just thinking about this, because I used to be really anal about, like, I try to make sure I'm reading everything, because we do it in Toque Talk as well. So once in a while I'll be like, oh, I know everything there is to know about that person that's coming in. But then I'll go and read something and I go, I totally forgot that they recorded this album at like Le Studio or the Power Station in New York, and it opens up a whole new bunch of things that I would love to talk about, So I do try and go back and read everything, but I generally, when I sit down to talk, I kind of treat it as sort of like Jay Bentley. I just recently did one with him, Bad Religion. I know a lot about Bad Religion. I'm a fan. So it's kind of like, and I'm really curious about when this guy was in the band, and then that guy came, like those transitions, but it's still good to go back and read through and go like, that I'm remembering it correctly and not just some sort of like weird thing in my brain. But even that sort of creates good conversations, because I think over preparing would be weird for me. Like in 1975, when like
right.
whoever you're talking to. But I think I try to just keep it natural. I like recently I recorded one with Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke, who's he's just a god, but
watch my review on their new album, Todd. I just posted it today.
you know what? It's so funny because I did that classic faux pas of like, well, when's the record coming out? He's like, well, it came out last month. Yeah, it got like, and I was like, and I'm like, oh, I'm that guy. I am that guy. But it's
dude,
like,
they're so good. Fuck.
It's so COVID brain where I'm like,
right.
When's the record coming out? It's like, oh, right. And I'm like, of course it's coming out. Of course it's already out. I have it right there,
It's right.
But I just kind of like,
you got Charlie Starr. See, fuck, I'm jealous, but go ahead. Yeah.
He's a bad motherfucker, man.
Oh,
He's
fuck,
like,
his voice, everything.
Yeah.
They're
so talented. But it's I try to keep it loose. I really don't, like, even like with Billy Sheehan recently, it was sort of like, I know a lot about Billy Sheehan. I feel completely out of his league to be, but by the end of it, I felt like we really connected. He has a really huge connection to Kim Mitchell and Max Webster.
Interesting.
So that was kind of like a really good way to lead off, was like, hey, I played with Kim several times, and he goes, Battle Scar? No way. That kind of conversation.
That's pretty cool.
And, but I try to keep it loose. I really don't.
Of course.
It always depends. And what this is like when you're talking to people. Some people are more easygoing than others. And like with Dave Rude from Tesla, Watch Your Feet. I just talked to him recently, but he's actually a friend of mine, and we're just laughing our asses off, having a good time. And then once in a while, it's somebody I don't know, that like Steve Stevens and guys like that. As much as I know, as much as I know Steve, I'm kind of like, I really, really love what Steve does, and I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting there trying not to fanboy out, but I'm still like, I'm total Chris Farley. Like, remember when you were in Billy Idol?
That would be so hard.
yeah.
With a guy like him, that would be so hard.
Well,
I don't want to hang up with you and go, fuck, I should have asked him that. That's why
I know.
I do it, right?
But we're bros, so it's different. It's
that's
not
right.
Like,
that's true.
And it's the same with any of these guys, because Mark Farner from Grand Funk, I got to do him. I mean, publicists have come to me now and go, do you want to talk to Mark Farner? Fucking A, I want to talk to Mark Farner. And but it's like, what a cool guy, man. Just like the coolest guy.
He was cool. Yeah.
And I'm like, so I just never really know what to expect with anybody. But we try and make it fun and make it a good time. I mean, with this kind of stuff, you're battling with technology, you're battling with Wi-Fi, you're battling with whatever, and you're so a victim of whatever they're dealing with. The Toque Talk one is hilarious because it's live, and it makes it sort of like, if that guy has a bad connection, it's going to be part of the fun of this show.
Oh, dude, Lips from fucking Anvil was the best. Here's my ceiling. Fucking
yeah. And it didn't
for
have
half
like
an hour.
Wasn't the audio echoing and shit? I can't remember.
Oh,
it was like
dude.
a bunch of crazy shit. We were like,
there was a couple. There was that one, and it was the dude,
Victor
the
Langen
Kick-Axe
from
guy.
Yeah, he never even got on.
He never even got on. That's right. That was one of my favorite episodes.
That's when Chris Jericho came in to save the day. I literally texted him right there and then. I go, hey, what are you doing right now? I'm just driving home. I go, here's the StreamYard link or whatever I had, and said, hop on if you have a chance.
Holy
We're trying to
fuck,
get,
that was funny.
because he's a huge Kickaxe fan, so I thought it
That's
would
right.
actually be kind of cool to have him on to talk to Victor. And he came on, and there's no Victor, and it was just kind of like, here's Chris Jericho.
There was like a good 30-second delay or something. It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
hilarious.
Oh, that was what it was. Yeah, it was a total disaster. But it
Yeah.
made for part of the fun. And the fun thing about that particular thing that we do is people seem to really get a kick out of the looseness of it. You know, it's just kind of like,
right.
it's not meant to be, it's not showbiz. Like in doing this kind of stuff, and you guys look so much better than I do. You're so much more prepared. Like people keep telling me, get this kind of mic, get this kind of light. And I'm always like, I think what I do, I like it to be a little bit more like, you're just supposed to be at the table,
Right.
sitting, hanging out with me and whoever I'm hanging out with, and we're just talking. And it's sort of, and there are times where I've walked away and the next day I'll go like, I can't believe I didn't ask about this one thing that they did. But I know I'll probably do it again, you know, and hopefully have a chance. Like it's been quite a few times where initially it started out with 100% people I knew, you know, at least kind of knew. And then now it's starting to be kind of a little bit more like, you know, getting connected to people I don't really know. So it sort of turns into, but I know people are sort of, you know, dealing with different levels of, you know, of the guy who's way too overprepared, someone who doesn't know who the fuck they are that they're talking to, you know, it's like,
Right.
they don't, this, I've done all those interviews, you know, it's a guy who knows it's a really stiff interview, or the guy who really doesn't know who I am. He's doing a favor to somebody. So it's like, and then with me, it's more, so I try to just be that guy that's like, I know a lot about what you do, but let's talk about, for whatever reason, there's been a lot of bass players, Glenn Hughes, Duff McKagan,
He's a nice guy, hey, Glenn?
Jay Bentley. Glenn Hughes is the shit, dude. He's 69 years old and he's just like the top of his game, dude.
He
He's
looks
like,
fantastic.
looks amazing, and he's singing amazing. On top of that, and a really underrated bass player. People always forget that he's a really amazing bass player. That new Dead Daisies record is really
Yep.
good.
It is.
Jeff Pilson. I'm trying to think of all the bass players. For whatever reason, I just sort of like find myself talking to all these bass players, and it's been a lot of fun. Kind of like, you know, once in a while it gets kind of tech talk, but very rarely. I'm not really a tech talk kind of guy. I'm getting less and less techie as time goes by. I wanted to show you this while I was.
Oh yeah, bring it on.
I've been using the Sands. This is the Geddy Lee.
Oh yeah.
Sands amp, and
Yeah.
I haven't even plugged it in yet because I want to wait until I can actually put it through a proper rig. I use Sands amps in my, like the regular Sands amp in my rig, but this is the DI 2112. So it's got
oh, I didn't see that.
2112, yeah.
and it's got the little picture of Geddy there, his own. So, and it's like in Robin's Egg Blue, which I think is really sexy. So
Awesome.
I was like, I went down actually it was Sebastian Bach's fault. He sent me down a huge Rush rabbit hole. There's a whole separate Sebastian Bach conversation that we'll have in the future, but that guy is all of us at 15 years old now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I love him.
Yeah,
That's why the cameos are the way they are. It's
Exactly,
just,
yeah.
that's him, right?
He's like, he's wants to drink a bottle of wine, smoke some weed, and have Rush cranked to 12. Like, and it doesn't matter
Crank to
that there's-
2112.
Exactly. Well played. It doesn't matter that there's girls there or people who've never heard this before. We're listening to Anthem or Side 1, 2112, you know, like, and he's singing every word, doing, you know, we're all air banding around because that's what you do. And it's just like, I sent some videos once in a while to my wife going like, this is basically what we did when we were 15 in basements, but it's now these are like 50-year-old men doing it. It's like,
That sounds fantastic.
yeah, it's so much fun. So I came away from that going like, why is Geddy Lee's bass sound so fucking awesome? It's a constant quest for me within the Slash group of
Right.
just trying to get like, you know, like that kind of like the real nice bottom with that real fucking punchy top, like somewhere between Lemmy and like, I don't know, a bass player. yeah. A bass tone, you know.
Right. Okay, dude. Well, I think we've kept you long enough, man.
That was a lot of fun.
We're at
man.
90.
I could do this all day, as you know. So
You can check out Todd on Toque Talk Tuesday, Todd Talks to Thursday. That's not easy to say. And get this Minefield album, man. It fucking slays, man. It's really good.
thank
And
you.
I can't wait to see you on the road, man. I want to get out there, dude.
Me too. Great to see you guys. Always a pleasure. I can't wait to come. Hopefully we'll cross paths. Maybe we'll cross paths in August. We haven't made any plans beyond Edmonton, but you never know.
Well, remember that little restaurant of my brother's you guys played, Publico? I heard a rumor Just it's in the rumor mill that you might do that again.
That would be so awesome, dude. That was a blast. That last time was ridiculous. We played The Trooper by Iron Maiden.
Yes, that was a highlight for me.
Totally.
That was Zach's doing. There's certain waters I tread into, but if I don't have a Zach there, it's kind of like, you know, Zach's like me. He knows a million songs. He just happens to know a million different songs than the million songs that I know. So we have that perfect little Venn diagram where that little sweet spot in the middle where we can help each other. He knows the words. Let him sing that with you.
I remember he had a necklace on, which is my tattoo, the 45.
He
sees it. He goes, "Come here. I want to take a picture with you." Well, the picture is him and just my arm. I'm not even in the It's on
sounds like
Instagram
Zach.
and shit. I'm like, this doesn't help me.
That sounds
This
like
is my
Zach.
arm.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's your arm. You can lay claim to that.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Todd. Hey.
My pleasure.
All right,
Absolutely.
man.
Thanks, brother.
No problem. Thanks, guys.